In this video, we are going to be looking at risk and resilience. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hi and welcome to Oaklaw Door. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Claire Attio. For those that are returning subscribers, thank you. And as I said in the very, very short intro there, risk and resilience. And it's interesting because if you watch my last video, I talked about having been on training for the past 2 weeks. And one of those trainings was risk related. And it was interesting because we had to, one of the exercises that we actually did was write down what can be perceived as a risky situation that we do habitually and write down one activity that we would deem high risk. And it was interesting because the dynamics, our perceptions within that group environment was vastly different. What one would do and think it normal, another would think was like, whoa, what's going on? And one of my high risk ones was, and it was that made me laugh because one of the things that I shared that I deemed highly risky was a few years back. My daughter and I were on holiday, and to get to a beautiful cove, we had to jump off the cliff. Now, when I say jump off the cliff, I'm not talking about those that we see on social media that are just, well, there was a coin phased within the group, and I think tomb jumping, and I was like, whoa, okay, is that how they think it? No, this was, for me, it was probably the height of a high ceiling. It wasn't massive. I'm not that brave, but it was into the sea, and then we had to kind of go in under a cave to be able to get to this cove, and this cove was absolutely beautiful. But the only reason I went was because my daughter is, I mean, I've always called her the kamikaze kid, because she has always been that adrenaline junkie. And so as her mother, and not wanting to pass my fears on to her, I made a pact very early on in being a mother that whatever she did, I would do with her, because if anything happened to her, it would happen to me. And there is no logic in it. I put my hands up to that. There is absolutely no logic to it, but that is where I came from. That is what I decided as a mother very early on. And so she jumped in, I jumped in after her. It was a necessity for me, and it was one of those risky situations that absolutely terrified me, but I am so glad I did it because it was beautiful. And it's pushing past those barriers that we set ourselves. Sometimes we can miss out on some of the greatest joys of life and making some of the greatest memories of life because of our fears. And that ties in with the video that went out on Tuesday. Where do our fears come from, and are they valid, or is it just a seed that's stuck in the amygdala that needs to be processed? The one thing that from that training that really hit me, and something that Spirit has had me looking at for some time now, especially since coming back to England, because England seems to have this risk aversion. It's everything is health and safety. And yes, health and safety is immensely important, and we do need to keep ourselves safe and healthy. I get that. But the flip side to that is, if we wrap ourselves up in cotton wool, we never give ourselves the opportunity for experiences that will build our resilience. that has us step out of our comfort zone, thus has us grow as a person. And I think this is very important. This is not something somebody can say, well, this is safe, this is not, this is safe, this is not. It's not for somebody else to make that judgment, but I think it's very important that we be reflective on these aspects, because when you're emerged, like I am now in the UK, a society that is so health and safety conscious and so scared almost of allowing the wind to blow in case something will happen, it had me thinking that it's really pushing us back into fear. Everybody on the spiritual pathway has been doing so much work to release ourselves from those fears. We've been working on our trauma. We've been working on past life trauma. We've been working on generational dysfunction. We have been breaking these curses, thus breaking the fear mentality, the fear-based thinking. We have been working on our ability to live in that energy of gratitude and to have that abundance, to that abundant mindset, all of which takes us away from fear-based thinking. And yet we have a society, we have institutions that are kind of breathing on us constantly about safety. They're applying that pressure of that fear. Are you doing that? Is that safe? You can't do it like this. You need to do it like that. You can't do that without having X, Y, Z. And I'm talking about the UK because that's where I'm living at the moment, but I do know that the States is exactly the same. And there are other parts of the country that slowly, I know in the 15 years I lived in Spain, when I went to Spain the first time, because I was submerged in that health and safety culture when I first went over there, I was like, oh, and then as I got accustomed to that, it was like, oh yeah, they're fine. And you got into a more, what's the word I'm looking for? A more independent energy, that they were grown adults and they knew the risks and they were weighing them up for themselves. And I think that's the thing, coming back to the UK, recognizing that there is this reluctance to give people, acknowledge people's own mental capacity for what they're able to do and not do in a safe, effective way. And I think there is a proportion of that that is entrenched in litigation, because we've taken on that very Americanized, I'll sue, and that fear of being sued. So that comes into play. When we are in institutions that is a large organization and has the responsibility of many, many people under their care, then absolutely those safeguards and those safety policies need to be in place, because there is a huge responsibility. But I think in everyday life, I believe in everyday life, we need to just take a step back and really tune into ourselves and go, okay, is that a risk that I feel comfortable with? Because this is where I see resilience dropping within humanity. And because of what I call that nanny state, always having Big Brother watch out for you, always having Big Brother tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing, we are losing the ability to, one, think independently for ourselves and make independent decisions for ourselves. And decision making comes in massively with this. This is something with the work that I actually do on the soul sovereignty journey and the program, is getting people back to be able and comfortable with making decisions for what is right for them in their life. We're losing that. We're losing that independent thought. And in losing that independent thought, we are losing our resilience, that ability to process what's going in our lives in a positive way. With that lack of resilience, we have this inability to brush things off, and it becomes arduous, and in some cases it becomes traumatic. And if we think back of culture, we went through that whole phase of calling youngsters flakes, and in some cases that's still occurring. But is it the youngsters, or is it because of the environment that we're creating that wraps them up in cotton wool and protects them from a world that, let's be honest, can be really, really harsh? That they have no experience of dealing when that cotton wool is taken off. And I pose the question to you, and to just sit and think about what you're doing in your lives for yourselves and for your children, or for your family members, or those that are in your care. Is it time to start? And when is the time? When do you feel comfortable to start taking a layer of that cotton wool off, so that they can start to build resilience, so that they can have a full and fruitful life as adults, so that you can have a full and fruitful life as an adult? I don't have all the answers, and I'm not even going to pretend that I do. It is just something that came up from that training, and it is something that has been, Spirit and I have been kind of mulling around for some months now, doing the work that I do and working with trauma as I do. A lot of the resilient equipment is subconsciously, it's not even a conscious thing. It's not saying, oh, well, I'm not going to give you the equipment to be able to thrive in life. But it's because we do live in this nanny state, and I think we need to kind of step back from that a little bit. And yes, there are absolutely times when that safety needs to be put in place. But there are other times where we can step back a little bit and allow our younger people to start making independent decisions for themselves, whilst that safeguard, that safety net is still in place for them. So I'll leave you with that. I hope this has been of help. If you've liked the video, press that like button. If you feel that somebody would benefit from this, please, by all means, share it. And if you've not yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I shall see you next time. Take care.